Hello everybody and welcome back to a new Space Engineers video. Recently I passed 6 years and over 4,000 hours of game time, so I thought it's about time I gave my 2 cents on the game in its current state to any of those pondering on the purchase. I want to preface this video with a warning. This is obviously my opinion. I'm aware that there are many aspects players wish to be changed, added or removed, but it's important to remember that it is literally impossible to please everyone, so I'll be reviewing what we do have, not what we could have. Also, I'm recording this at the time of the Most Wanted update, so what I talk about could be subject to change provided an update is substantial enough, so please bear that in mind. By no means do SE's graphics compare with modern AAA titles, but I find its art style unique and strangely homely. I believe it's a great fit for the game's atmosphere, and from time to time you get some exceptionally beautiful views. There's a sense of wonder that comes from looking up at a distant planet and being able to work your way over to it eventually and look back at where you came from. Also, with every update, more and more detailed models are being released, which are starting to look really good. All that I need to say is, I listen to this even when I'm not playing SE. Survival in Space Engineers is a massively debated topic at the moment, with some hating it, some loving it, and others just not interested. To be clear, after a few hours in the game, survival will become very easy. There's not much for you to maintain in order to survive, boiling down to really just oxygen and power. I believe that the value in survival comes from a role-playing side, as there is no endgame and no overlying goal to accomplish. For some players, this is a massive drawback, but it's important to remember that SE is a sandbox game. If you're happy with setting your own goals and celebrating your achievements as you go, there is a lot of fun to be had here. There is also a basic economy function in place, which I admit I wish they did a bit more with. It's a really interesting system, allowing you to complete material/component contracts, escort freighters, run cargo missions, and even buy brand new ships from stations dotted around the system. Creative mode is most players' go-to for gameplay. The freedom and possibilities of what you can create in this game is enormous. From simple, easy to use survival ships, all the way to universe building with lore and stories, the possibilities are almost endless. You're free to explore the system, spawn in any planets, blueprints, or resources, and ultimately build to your heart's content. With the inclusion of mods, usually the only limitation to what you can do is how much you love your computer, as well as your free time. There are a few story-driven scenarios in Space Engineers which turned out to be extremely fun for me, such as the first jump, frostbite, and the lost. Even the tutorial scenarios I found useful for finding building inspiration or just to explore around. The sandbox survival-based scenarios, I must admit, are very dated at this point, and I would love to see them updated in the future. However, at present they do still serve their purpose in giving you a unique situation to try and make a success from, such as a large crashed vessel, an existing planetary base, or an asteroid platform. These can be very helpful if you're new to the game or dislike the initial grind to get set up in survival mode. The core idea of Space Engineers is probably what initially draws a lot of players in. A sandbox, open world, physics-based environment where you can explore planets and build ships as well as stations, rovers, bases and more. Although lacking a bit of meat on the bone, Space Engineers actually does this well, I feel. Some of what stands out to me would be how smooth the transition from space to planets is, as well as the ability to walk around an actively moving ship, something which many competitors just can't do. On the downside, the robust mechanics are usually lacking in depth, e.g. there is no particular reason or need to explore every planet or even go down to one in the first place. However, the core gameplay loop, for the most part, I love. Maybe it's nostalgia speaking, but for me, the overall atmosphere that the game creates can be incredible. It's also worth mentioning, as with most games, Space Engineers can be much more fun with friends in certain situations. Surviving together, building, fighting, or just messing around can yield tons of fun. Thanks to the warfare updates, combat in Space Engineers has improved greatly. I actually think it's in a really good place at the moment. PvE combat in the present vanilla game is a bit lacking. It comes down to taking out turrets on stationary or derelict vessels. However, there are a few encounters that will actually summon drones or fight back, along with the escort missions you can grab from the economy stations. Mods do wonders for PvE combat, the standout one being the Modular Encounters collection, which adds planetary cargo ships and outposts for you to raid and battle. The current PvP meta usually boils down to large ships orbiting one another and trading shots. Unless you take a faction or base by surprise, I will be honest, it's not something that I massively enjoy. However, there is definitely part of the community for those who do enjoy it. Oh boy, get ready for a hot take. The addition of DLC is certainly highly debated within the community, but if we're being realistic, it does make sense. Games need developers, and developers need to be paid. The base game price itself is incredibly cheap in my opinion for what you're getting, along with the DLCs all being priced literally the same as a Tesco meal deal. That being said, I do believe there are simply far too many of them. It can be scary to new players when they're hit with a long list of extra content. Fortunately, the majority of the content is simply a nice to have, but there are certainly aspects of DLC packs that just can't be replicated in the vanilla game. I will be honest, Space Engineers is probably my favourite game. Initially, I found it slightly difficult to get my head around and daunting when I saw what people were creating on the workshop. However, once you become more familiar with the game, available blocks and mechanics, there is a lot of fun to be had and a great environment to let your creativity flow. I love the atmosphere that's created, the art style, the music, sounds, and possibilities that it provides. If you need objectives, end goals, and direction when playing games, then you might find Space Engineers a bit frustrating. It heavily relies on creativity and building your own scenarios. Survival mode is also a bit too easy once you get a basic understanding of the game, and can certainly become repetitive without the addition of mods. I really don't believe in the out of 10 rating system, but what I'll say is that if you enjoyed sandbox games such as Minecraft, Terraria or Empyrean, you're probably going to have a good time in Space Engineers. The initial learning curve is admittedly pretty steep, coupled with the in-game tutorials not being great, which can make it frustrating at first. But if you're able to get through this point, there's an incredibly rich and exciting experience waiting behind it. If I were to start playing Space Engineers today, I would recommend purchasing just the base game and playing through the tutorial scenarios, learning the basics of the game. In conclusion, for the price of the game versus the amount of entertainment to be had, I would say it's well worth it. But like I said, it's certainly not for everyone, but those who it clicks with usually end up putting in hundreds to thousands of hours. I don't know who that is.